Is us on the phone from Rome. Phil, good to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure.
So is this something that a Catholic university should do, given all the controversy that has been brewing over embryonic stem cell research, which many Catholics are very much against, and also the abortion issue?
You know, since 1957, the year I graduated, in that year, 75% of all Catholics went to Mass regularly on Sunday. Today, it's 25%. Half of all Catholic high schools have closed. My parish as a child, St. Coleman's in Cleveland, a wonderful working-class parish that made such an important contribution to the American culture in the 20th century, just one of thousands, is closing. And we have now a group of alumni, members of the Catholic family of Notre Dame, wanting to shut the door on the President of the United States. At a time when we should be reaching out, trying to get young Catholics to become part of the church, we seem to be lashing out.
Yeah, Father Jonathan, I want you to weigh in here. I hear a lot about the decline of the Catholic Church. I have to say, in my own experience, I don't see it. I mean, when I go to Mass, you can barely get a seat. We have 5 Masses in my church on Sunday mornings. I see hundreds of kids making their first communion. So I am not so sure about that the Catholic Church is in decline. But let me have Father Jonathan weigh in on the basic premise of our conversation, which is, do you think that President Obama should be speaking at Notre Dame this commencement?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be speaking with you, Martha, and also with Mr. Donahue there, with Phil. I'm also from Cleveland, Ohio. Mr. Donahue, I think we have a lot in common. We also have a lot in common, the fact that we're both interested in civil rights issues and work for those. But what we don't have in common, and I think this also answers your question, Martha, is the belief that the Catholic Church needs to defend life from the very moment of conception all the way up until natural death. And I'm very happy to know that the University of Notre Dame also believes this. And that's why it is so surprising that they would choose to honor their giving. Remember, they're not just inviting him to speak. I would be very happy for him to speak in a debate format. But they're giving him an honorary degree. And I believe that this type of waffling that has allowed the Catholic Church during especially the 60s and the 70s, and we're still experiencing, unfortunately, some of the consequences of that, to get watered down and not to be attractive.
What do you think about that, Phil?
I wish... Why can't we just disagree and discuss the issue of abortion? It shouldn't be a deal breaker, Father. It shouldn't be used to exclude the President of the United States from my campus. I should also make this point, opposing the President's appearance more than my presuming to speak for Notre Dame. I am a divorced and remarried Catholic. I did not have my marriage annulled. I chose not to. I refused to pay somebody for a fee. They were going to tell me that I never really was married. I didn't know quite how to explain that to my children. So I can't go to communion. I wish, however, that the Pope, who's receiving a Holocaust-denying bishop, who's telling men in age-ravaged countries not to use condoms, I wish this Pope would be more interested in perhaps his voice to the thunderous level that we get on all these other rules about, for example, the war in Iraq and Afghanistan and the number of people being killed around the world because of the behavior of some dictatorial countries. I don't understand why we're so focused on archaic rules that were passed by old men sitting on wooden benches at the Council of Trent. Let's get to the modern world, and let's get these young Catholics back into the church.
Father Jonathan?
Sure. Well, I should sit down and do a show together sometime. I would love to talk about all of those issues. Let me start by saying that I'm 36 years old. I'm getting old, but I'm not that old. And quite honestly, I am very happy to say without any sort of embarrassment that when a university gives an honorary degree to somebody, in this case for being a good statesman, they need to give it to somebody who has been a good statesman in an honorary way. And that includes defending life according to our Constitution. And that is what dialogue, not because we're afraid of debate, but rather let's talk about those things in the proper format, and that is a discussion and debate and dialogue.
Father John, let me jump in because I want to ask you a quick question because we're almost out of time and I want to get another thought from Phil. Would you recommend to students at Notre Dame, would you tell them you need to protest or you need to respect the President of the United States? Father Jonathan?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was for
No,
Mr.
that's for
Donahue.
you.
Well, I don't think those two things are contradictory. We should respect the as president, but we should also respect our conscience and respect the truth to say, as a Catholic university, you are not standing up for an essential element of our faith. So come to us and debate and to discuss issues. But in my opinion, I don't think it's a good thing to be honoring somebody for something that's not honorable.
You know, whenever I confront an issue like this, I always try to put it in another context, you know. For example, what if you had, you know, a primarily Jewish university and you had an anti-Semitic speaker that was asked to speak at that commencement? It goes against the central core of the most fundamental belief of what that university stands for. So is that, although the issues are very different, is that applicable to this situation? Because a central core of Catholicism is a respect for and a protection of life, which cuts across this issue of embryonic stem cell research. And a lot of people believe that by backing embryonic, you're negating a couple of avenues that are very fruitful in science that would not, you know, involve the destruction of embryos and the abortion issue, both of which the president has been very front and center on since he became president.
Well, I wouldn't equate anti-Semitism with people who are pro-choice.
I'm not. I'm saying those are both issues that are central to these different faiths, okay?
And
That's what I'm saying.
By the way, the Church's history is not altogether flattering on the issue of anti-Semitism, and has recently been expressed by
whatever central faith you want to put in, you know. Well, when you have a central core belief and you invite someone to speak at your university who doesn't believe in that central core belief, isn't it legitimate to be against that or to protest it?
Well, we should make the point that George Bush would be totally welcomed by the people opposing Barack Obama's visit. Totally. They would open the door for him. And George Bush is responsible for a war that has killed over 4,000 Americans, almost 1 million Iraqis, and has created havoc, 4 million refugees, people without homes in Iraq alone, not to mention Afghanistan. Come on in, George Bush, and speak to us. What's wrong with this picture? If we're going to get ourselves into a wrestling...
Jonathan, jump in.
Yes.
Sure. Let me just say, you know, Mr. Donahue, you've talked about 8 different issues here. I'm keeping track of them here, and you haven't been talking about whether or not a Catholic university who says and has repeated it many times that they are pro-life and that this is an essential part of our faith should give an honorary degree to somebody who is completely against those essential beliefs.
Well,
the other issues are very good issues, and I would love to discuss those with you. And I'd be love to do it on air with you, Mr. Donahue. But let's not forget what we're talking about. This is the essence, and this is very important, not just for the Catholic Church, but as Martha was bringing up, for any organization that wants to maintain its identity and to thrive. Who's going to be attracted to an organization that doesn't have its own identity?
Father, I don't have to tell you. The Church is in intensive care. The Catholic Church is struggling for its life. It can't attract priests. Nuns are now down to 38,000 total. In the United States, the average age is 68.
Hold on. Father Jonathan, how many priests are you currently training right now?
Right in this house, there's about 450 word.
450. Okay, they're at capacity.
Well... Fine. If all is well, Father, then you and I are, you know, I'm on Mars and you're on Venus. If all is well with the Catholic Church.
Not all is well, but what we need to do, Mr. Donahue, is to reaffirm our identity. We need to go back to the basics. We need to give young people an ideal, not to water something down and suggest that the best way to attract people is by giving them little toys when they come into the church and to sing along and to...
All right, we got to go. I'm going to give you one last thought, Phil.
Father, millions of Catholics are pro-choice. Don't deny them the sacraments. Don't deny them their rightful place in the church. They can help the church. They will give vitality to the church and they will draw young people.
All right.
The very thing that the church needs to nourish itself right now.
Very good
We should get
discussion.
together
Thank you
and have a
very
cup of
much.
coffee, Mr.
We'll do that right here next time you come to New York, Father Jonathan. Bill Donahue, thank you very much.
Not
Father
easy.
Jonathan, thank you very much. Trace?